Hello.
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 Hi there.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Football Times podcast with myself, RadioTimes.com sport editor Michael Potts, and I'm joined in the studio today by BBC Match of the Day magazine deputy editor. It's Mr. Mark Parry. I was going to call you Paz, and then I was Mark Parry. Yeah, Mark Parry. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm very well.
Good,
it's
good.
nice when people ask me this. You know, it's not just.
I'm always
just one
concerned
way.
you're
Thanks.
how you are.
I'll take that. Somehow. We will be here to bring you all the previews for the Premier League matches on TV this weekend. We've got 4 matches, starting with Friday night football. We haven't got any Monday night football for you this week, unfortunately. But yeah, should we get cracking on this fine week of Premier League action? Starting with Norwich versus Leicester. It's on Friday, 28th of February. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff on Sky Sports Premier League and main event. We'll start with Norwich. I should have said that in a far more negative tone of voice. Let's start with Norwich. Are they doomed? It's not looking great, really, is it, for them?
I mean, it's hard to be at the bottom of the Premier League at this stage of the season and survive.
Yeah. I mean,
especially when they're not showing any signs really of any great recovery. Not having a great run. 1 win in the last 14 games. I mean, that in itself is relegation form, isn't it? Bless them.
yeah, so Norwich 7 points adrift of Aston Villa in 17th, 7 points away from safety. They're also 6 points away from Watford, so they're even getting cut adrift in that bottom 3 there. I was speaking to our Office Norwich fan, who shall remain nameless for embarrassment's sake. But yeah, they basically just saying, because I was sort of saying like Farke came up with this attacking philosophy, the philosophy, and he hasn't really changed that a lot. It feels like, and again, Norwich fan I chatted to sort of agreed with a lot of what I was saying. Like they've played the last 4 games with the same midfield and attack. You know Puckie's going to start up front by himself.
Yep.
You know
Yep.
it's going to be McLean, Tete. It's been Rupp, Duda, Cantwell in that 3. Just hasn't really changed at all. Despite some like quite alarming results, they're just repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Well, yeah, that's it, isn't it? I mean, at the start of the season, they were getting a lot of praise, weren't they? And Farke was getting a lot of praise for going with that style of play and going at teams and attacking them. I think the suggestion was back then that they might leave themselves open and lose a few games. And that's proven correct. They've lost a lot of games, haven't they? But they just can't seem to score any goals, can they? The trouble is they've got Pukki and they rely on Pukki for goals, don't they? If I think Pukki's got maybe almost 50% of their goals this season.
A very decent chunk of them, isn't he?
They haven't scored in the last 3 games. They've not scored in the Premier League in open play since New Year's Day. And Pukki himself hasn't scored in open play since the reverse fixture back in December.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because Pukki, obviously, he clearly has something about him. You don't have that start of the season that he had without having a bit of oomph, bit of something.
Yeah.
I just feel a little bit sorry for him because he does sort of cut that isolated figure up top, and obviously if teams, he almost dug his own grave in a sense in that first start of the season, because now every time Norwich rock up, you're thinking, right, let's get 2 men on Pukki, let's just watch him the whole game. And they haven't really got much else, so it's kind of an easy job, isn't it? Just if you close down, if you neutralise Pukki, you neutralise Norwich.
That's exactly it, and I think that's what most teams have done this season, and that's why Norwich is sitting at the bottom of the table.
Tricky one. And moving on to Leicester now, other end of the table, but not really in great shape at the moment, Leicester. Haven't won in 3. I think there's a bit of a cause for concern for them at the moment. I know they're 3rd and looking pretty comfortable. They've had a bit of a boring time since Christmas, really, haven't they? But you just think, if one of those teams, I know it's been a bit of a slog for teams trying to catch Chelsea, even though Chelsea haven't been great. But you just start to think the gap narrows down to about 6-7 points, and could anybody realistically take that off them?
Well, they haven't really threatened so far, have they? Leicester have kind of been just plodding away, picking up the odd points here and there, and still staying 3rd. And it's like what Chelsea have done in 4th, really. They've had some really poor results, and yet they still find themselves in 4th. Leicester, I think this is a game that Leicester would really like coming up, travelling to Norwich, bottom of the table, a chance to get back into some form. Leicester haven't won away since New Year's Day, I think it is. And the big thing for Leicester is to get Jamie Vardy scoring again.
Yeah, absolutely.
9 games without a goal. I think it's about time that that Vard's hits the goal trail again.
Yeah,
especially the week after Pep Guardiola said he was one of the best strikers he's ever seen.
This is also a man who thinks Phil Foden is the best player he's worked with, despite managing, the obvious.
Are you saying a pinch of salt then?
I think a mine of salt. But yeah, Vardy, like you say, yet to score in 2020, 9 games without goal. It's his longest dry spell in 3 years.
Is it really?
Which is bizarre considering it was probably his best start to a season. I mean, I don't know what the pace was for the title season, but like that must have been pretty much on par with that title season, if not better at the time.
Well, yeah, and he's still obviously in with a great shout of winning the Golden Boot.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, interesting, Leicester only won one of the last 11 games with Vardy in the team. So he's had a few injuries, had a few bits of niggles and knocks here and there. And I think that's what I was reading today. Rodgers is basically putting it down to fitness and injury problems and things. But it is interesting, like, for such a talismanic player and the player who many would say is, Leicester, one-man team, Jamie Vardy. They're not doing so great with him in there, leading the line. It's not a great situation to be in. Iheanacho chipping in with the occasional goal, but slightly worrying times for Leicester.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, also with Ndidi being out as well, he's a big loss for them in the middle of the pitch there. Luckily, they've got a half decent centre back pairing and a decent defence with one of the best defensive records away from home in the whole league. So that's obviously kept them in games while Vardy's not been scoring the goals.
Absolutely, and let's say this is a good chance for Leicester to actually, and for Vardy to build their confidence up. Prediction for this one.
Well, we're talking about how Norwich can't score goals and Vardy's not been scoring goals. 3-3. 3-2 Leicester.
Yeah, absolutely that. I mean, what else would it be right now? I'm going to narrow win Leicester, but I'd love to watch your version of events in that one. Moving on to Saturday, we have a 12:30 kickoff on BT Sport 1. Saturday, the 29th of February. Enjoy that. It's I enjoyed that. Brighton versus Crystal Palace. The Glen Murray M23 sharing an obscure motorway derby.
Yep.
We had a good laugh about this last time we were on. I can't remember which of your motley crew it was. We chatted about this, but we love this derby.
Me.
Well, was it you?
It was me.
It was you.
It was me. It was the Gatwick Express derby, wasn't it?
The Gatwick Express derby. It's fantastic. I'm glad. Well, now I remember who it was.
We're back
absolutely. What a shambles. We'll start with Brighton. 4 draws in 5 games. Haven't won in 2020. There's a lot of teams haven't won in a long time.
Some really good runs of no wins for a lot of teams down at the bottom at the moment. I think every team is trying to outdo themselves and become the worst team in the league. But
nobody wants a Champions League spot, and everyone wants to go down apparently. So. Welcome to the Premier League. The last win versus Bournemouth in December. Play some neat football. Play some good football when I've seen them on the occasion that I've seen full games. Just maybe like that sort of, it sounds really predictable to say, but that sort of dash of quality up front and the dash of quality at the back. Just that little extra at either end of the pitch just to sort of, I don't know, improve them from this sort of very average base.
Yeah, I think that's the same situation for a lot of the teams down there, isn't it? It's just that a sprinkling of Premier League quality in any of those teams down the bottom, and it can really transform your season. It's a funny one, Brighton, because obviously Graham Potter has won a lot of friends this season, and Brighton themselves have been spoken of quite glowingly in the type of football that they're trying to play and that they do play, and it's a season of transition almost from Chris Hughton. But Graham Potter this season has got a 23% win percentage.
It's not great,
which is exactly the same,
really.
Exactly the same as Chris Hughton in his final season in charge at the Amex.
Wow, that's interesting, and that's also interesting because of the perception you have of managers, isn't it? Like, again, we've seen with Everton, sort of, it was Sam Allardyce had fantastic win ratio or whatever and did 8th, but got them to 8th, but Marco Silva was suddenly better because they were playing nicer football for a while, and it's funny how the perception just sort of changes with that. I think like you say there, though, transition season, probably is quite a big leap, isn't it, going from Hughton's style to Potter's style. But it's an interesting one to see where they go from here, because it could very easily just fizzle out and that's Brighton down again next season or even this season. But
I think they'll give Potter the season, won't they? And see how they do if they stay up. It's a big one next year for him to see how they take on that new style and see if he can turn them into a top half of the table team.
They tied him down to a long contract as well, didn't they? I think it was 2023. I'm going to have a guess at. So the long-term project in progress on the south coast. Moving north of the M23, it's Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace doing what Crystal Palace do best. Awful form. Just get that one win over Newcastle. Suddenly 33 points. Jobs are good and you're safe.
Yeah, what is it? 1 win in 8, I think, for Palace. And their last away win in the Premier League was back in November. But they're just such a Palace team this season, aren't they? Roy Hodgson in charge. They're organised. They won't lose loads of games. They won't win loads of games. They'll just pick up enough points to survive, and that's what they're doing.
And they're one of these teams who it's not like they've sort of spent a lot of money and they're wasting it. They're just not really spending a lot of money and therefore not really progressing up the league. But they're just sort of there. They're just sort of getting on with it. And for long-time listeners of the pod, Roy Hodgson, I am such a fan of Roy Hodgson. I just love what he's done with it. Like, it's just, he just gets on with it. Grandfather Roy just plods on, gets the points he needs to get. I guess over it, he's still playing Benteke up front, and he's playing Benteke up front in 2020 and still having enough points to be comfortably, probably comfortably safe with 10 or so games to go.
He likes challenging himself, doesn't he? I think
he does. That's what it is. He likes a challenge,
and that's it. In fairness to Roy, he has got them really well organised. Defensively, all of his teams have generally been pretty sound, haven't they? And I think this season only no team has scored fewer goals than Palace this season. But defensively, they've conceded fewer than Arsenal, Tottenham and Chelsea.
It's pretty good going,
so
isn't
officially the best defence in London.
London is...
Roy would absolutely love that, wouldn't he?
London is red and blue, so with a hint of yellow. They're another interesting team who, like Brighton, they're sort of in a similar position of how do you build on that? And you do just think, I mean, they're crying out for that striker, which they've been looking for a few years now. I'd love them to kind of reinvest Zaha money. I think he's probably going to go this summer, or at least they should be trying to maybe get him out this summer, because I don't think he's had the impact this season they'll have wanted to. And I'd love to see him go and get a few young, hungry, upcoming players. That's easier said than done. Moving on. Prediction. For this one.
Let's have a 1-1, shall we?
1-1. That sounds right for Crystal Palace Brighton. I'm going with a Brighton win.
Are you?
Going with a narrow Brighton win. Just think, let's say this game could pretty much set them on course for survival. It's a big one, and I think Graham Potter will make sure his men know that. Moving on to Saturday evening. It's a 5:30 kickoff on Sky Sports Premier League, and main event, it's Watford versus Liverpool. We'll start with Watford. Again, these winless runs, another team who just can't buy a win from anywhere. I mean, that the new manager bounce, we obviously saw how good they were under, when Nigel Pearson first came in. Nigel Pearson nearly started with a win over Liverpool at Anfield.
Yeah.
Phenomenal performance, just very unlucky that it didn't actually get a point or more from that. What do you think it is about this new manager bounce? Like, it clearly is a thing. I'm just not quite sure what the thing is.
Well, whether it's just a change of voice in the dressing room that players just decide to turn up for, but they definitely had a bounce. I think they won 4 of Pearson's first 7 games in charge, and the only defeat was that match at Anfield. But now they've gone on to no wins in 5, and you think that they had that bounce, and now they've got sucked right back into it, and it's hard to see them having another bounce, I think, isn't it?
It's like, what's the spark? What's going to instigate that next sort of peak? If you want to put it like that. It's interesting though, because I've said it a couple of times on here that a lot of the teams down there don't particularly have like a match winner, whereas I feel like Watford, if any team has a match winner, it's probably Watford. They've got Deeney, Delafeu, even Doucouré.
Yeah. They've
got players who can step up and win games on their day, and you've got to look at them and think like what are you doing? Like just needs one of those to step up in the end of the season, and it could turn those narrow draws or narrow defeats into a point or 3. It's just so frustrating because they're all talented players. Delafeu he's got some feet on him, that boy.
Yeah, and sensational on his day, isn't
it? Yeah, it's just bizarre how they can drift in and out like that. And obviously coming up against Liverpool,
it's not what you want to see, is it?
It's not ideal. It's not ideal. Although Liverpool slightly wobbling the last week. I'm not trying to suggest anything dramatic here, but yeah, it's not been as imperious as usual from Liverpool.
No, they won, didn't they? They beat West Ham. Just when you start to think maybe we've got a title race back on, have we of some description? No, of course we haven't. They just get 2 late goals and win that game.
Same old. Just
what is there to say about Liverpool that's not been said before? They're 19 points clear, going for those record wins on the trot.
It's the classic, the Liverpool jargon, mentality monsters and relentless and all that jazz. I mean, it really was. I watched it the other night, and it was bizarre actually though, because if you think about the goals Liverpool scored, it was Fabianski basically gift wrapped the points for them. But still, they just find a way, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal to watch. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold's the one I want to pick out this time round. I saw a few stats this morning about Trent. Obviously, he could have had a hat-trick of assists the other night had Mane's offside goal counted. My fantasy Premier League was crying when that went in. It didn't go in. But in this season, per 90 minutes, Trent Alexander-Arnold ranks first in long passes, first in crosses, fourth in shots assisted, and probably the most outrageous of all, the 8th most passes in the final third. He's a right back. He's not, is he? That's the thing. He's so much more than a right back. He's a right back in sort of name only on the pitch, because he's a phenomenal player. It's absolutely amazing to watch. I was watching after the match as well, actually, Gary Neville chatting to him, and he was basically saying how he's revolutionised the fullback position and all this, and I think maybe the likes of Marcelo, etc., Real Madrid, who've done that, and we've seen attacking fullbacks in a back four before, but Trent does it as well as anybody I can remember. It's just phenomenal. Like, he does just camp himself in the opposition half. It doesn't track back as often. He obviously gets back when he needs to. And the amount of balls, the quality and consistency of the ball is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. For
a player to be so influential from right back is a very special thing. And he's been phenomenal. 12 assists for the season, the same as Lionel Messi's got this season. 25 assists in his Premier League career, the youngest player to reach that total behind Rooney and Cesc Fabregas, obviously two far more attacking players. He's phenomenal. And I think it was Gary Lineker that was saying after the game on Monday night that Trent could be one of the greatest players ever to come from England. It's high praise indeed.
It's high praise, but the way he's going, if he can keep that sort of production rate up over his career, I mean, good luck to the boy, good luck to the lad. And England will be absolutely delighted to have him in full flying form ahead of the Euros. It's mad to think he wasn't actually really in the conversation at the last time 2018 World Cup.
Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker.
And now suddenly in those 2 years we've seen the birth of like we're saying potentially one of the greatest ever. Time will tell on that one. Liverpool, they lacked Henderson, maybe missed Henderson and Milner the other night. Lacked a bit of the engine in the middle of the park, a bit of the dirty work, the sort of the recycling part of the game. But it's nothing too much to worry about.
No, sometimes it's good to get a bit of a scare as well, isn't it? Just to for Klopp to sort of say to his players, look, that was you let your standards slip a little bit tonight. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again. Like
Liverpool, they can choose when they want to go behind, so they can choose when they need a little boost. I like that. Prediction for this one.
How many goals Liverpool are going to score? Is that what you're asking?
That's basically what we're going for here.
I mean, it could easily be a 3-0 Liverpool.
I'm going 2-0. 2-0. I'm going 2-0. Conservative. But I think they'll be after a clean sheet after, the barrage of goals they've conceded in the last 2 games, a whole 3, that is. Moving on to Sunday, just the one game on TV. It's a 2 o'clock kickoff. Sunday, 1st of March. We're in March already.
Is that spring?
Interesting, apparently. Word on the street. Sky Sports Premier League and main event at 2 o'clock kickoff. Everton versus Manchester United. The pick of the games this weekend for me. We'll start with Everton. Everton playing the 4-4-2, going back to an old school prehistoric age there. Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. Have you seen much of them? Are you particularly impressed by Everton lately?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think those two have been really, really good for Everton this last couple of months since Ancelotti's come in. Interestingly, I was looking at some stats this morning, and Mane and Firmino have got 21 goals between them. Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, 22. There you go.
There you go.
Best partnership on Merseyside.
You've increased our Evertonian follower
I've just ignored Mo Salah there just for for statistical purposes.
I like that. If you average it all out, Calvert Lewin. I mean, I feel like he's really like grown into it, like physically grown into it as well.
Yeah.
I sort of criticised maybe at the start of the season. He just didn't really have the presence maybe up front. He just looked a little bit lost sometimes. Maybe coming through the youth system and suddenly he's thrown at the Premier League. But he actually looks like quite an imposing player now.
But he's still 22, I think he is. So he's still a young lad, and he's physically he's going to be growing for the next couple of years anyway. But he's got most things in his locker, I think, to be a really good Premier League striker. And since Ancelotti's come in, I don't think any player in the Premier League has scored more goals than Calvert Lewin.
They're both sharp finishes as well. When we're talking about Calvert Lewin and Richarlison, both can find that corner of the net. Obviously acrobatic as well at the weekend, the two of them. Richarlison, one more Premier League. It's like a stat battle here. I like this.
Come on then.
One more Premier League goal makes him the second Everton player this century to reach double figures in successive Premier League seasons. Just the second Everton player of the century to get double figures in the Premier League.
And who was the first?
Seasons. Who do you think was the
Dixie.
first? In Premier League this century.
Was he not playing in the early 90s?
Hang on. Which century are we in now? Yeah. We've gone back in time. Yeah, no. Who are you going for?
Give me a clue.
Recent.
Oh, Lukaku.
Yeah, there we go. It's not a hard one. I was going through Cahill, I was going through Yakubu, went Andy Johnson, but no, it was Lukaku. 4 seasons in a row he managed it. Also Richarlison made 55 tackles this season, 18 more than the next forward.
Wow.
Like that.
And this is why Barcelona wanted to pay 100 million euros for him in January.
They wanted him to fill the Busquets role. I like that. Moving on to Manchester United. Whisper it quietly, but they've actually looked very good recently. I know Ketch is quite a big critic of Man United this season. I feel like me and Ketch, that's our little thing sometimes. Okay. He's not a fan of how they're going this season. I actually think credit where it's due, and I think they've looked rock solid at the back recently. They're not conceded in 5 of the last 6.
Yeah.
Unbeaten in those 6 as well. Beat Chelsea, smashed Watford, beat City at the Etihad. Even things like Bruges, I know people were criticising that performance, but like, that's a tricky game. Like I know past Man United, teams would have scoffed at that and drawing away in Bruges and stuff. But I don't think the situation is as dire as everybody may suggest. And you look like you're going to disagree with me here.
I don't think I don't think it's been a great season, but it's looking like they may be able to get that top 4 spot now. They've put a couple of good wins together. Chelsea aren't out of sight. I think the big thing for United was when Rashford got injured, the big fear was that, well, that's it now. That's our Champions League hopes gone for the season. But they've actually rallied, and Anthony Martial has come to the fore of the last 3 games, 3 goals in 3 games. He's got 15 goals this season, so not doing too badly. He's just a bit of consistency, and he could genuinely be one of the best forward players in the whole of Europe, couldn't he? I
mean, we've said this about Rashford in the last couple of seasons. Like we forget how young Martial actually is as well, because Rashford is the younger. But yeah, you do think if you can just start putting that in on a weekly basis, then suddenly you've got, like I say, Rashford and Martial fit and firing, you're sorted.
Yeah, and Mason Greenwood as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, great finish the other day as well.
So he's got more goals this season than any other Premier League teenager. So he's shown real glimpses of quality as well. So they've got some firepower, even without Rashford out the team. And obviously Bruno Fernandez comes in and adds a bit of quality in that final third as well. Yeah,
great start to life at Man United from Fernandez. 2 assists and a goal in his last 2 Premier League games. Also won the penalty. Nice little run through for that. Confident penalty as well. I like the Jorginho little hop. I like that. And again, I watched that Europa League game, the one against Bruges, for some unknown reason. I had no plans on a Thursday. He came on for 9 minutes and the whole team just lifted. Yeah. Like, he just gave them a new dimension. I think there was a ball over the top for Mata. Mata just completely didn't expect it even to fall at his feet like that. Just seems to have given them, because I think United, they hit teams on the break. They've got the likes of James, Martial, Rashford.
They've got the pace,
They've got that, and I think they've maybe leaned on that a bit too much, of just so we can sit back and then hit at pace, and if you don't score from that, you're not going to score. But with people like Fernandez, if you give him that space and that time, he can loft those balls over the top. He can slide those balls through the middle. Totally. I think he's just such a credit where it's due. Again, a clever signing from Manchester United, and you can't really say that about many of their signings lately. They're certainly not the finished article. I'm not suggesting they are, and I'm not suggesting any title race anytime soon. Just think that top 4 place is very much in their sights, and like I say, this is a huge game to test themselves against an informed team. Prediction for this one?
Well, I think last season it was 4-0 to Everton, so let's hope for Man United's sake and your sake as well it's not the same. I think we could have a score draw, maybe 2-2. 2 apiece.
I'm going with United to nick it, but I could see a draw. I could see a little 1-1 draw there. And to be fair, both sides probably wouldn't turn down a draw at this stage of the proceedings. Moving on to Fantasy Premier League tips. We've talked about the man Bruno Fernandez. I've put him in my team this week. 8.2 million. Let's say a couple of assists, a goal, clean sheet points, a few bonus points. Like I say, just lifts United in every game so far. The other player I toyed with, Richarlison, feels like he's fixture proof. He just scores against any team whenever he likes. United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Norwich, Leicester, Tottenham coming up. Not an easy run in for Everton, but he's bang in form. And my other shout for the week, Willy Bolly. Return to the fold, Willy Bolly. 4.7 million, Wolves defender, 3 games, 3 clean sheets. If you take out his long injury in the middle, that's 5 clean sheets in 6 games. Good cheap defender. Good games coming up. I feel like I'm selling people here. I feel like I'm actually going once, going twice. Yeah, I'm not trying to auction these players off. What is in Match of the Day magazine this week, Paz?
This week it's another classic, if I do say so myself. Now we look at the EFL Cup final, Manchester City against Aston Villa. We look at El Clasico, big title clash in Spain, and we also have a little skill section for the kids on how to play like Chelsea's new signing, Ziyech.
Ooh, I like that.
Can you play like him?
I mean, no.
Get the magazine and you can learn.
Interesting, yeah, for the kids and for the adults
Yes.
who want to live their dreams belatedly. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio this week, sir. And yes, if you want all your sporting previews, Premier League football coming up, come to radiotimes.com/sport. I'll also, you don't even know about this. I'll be in Marrakesh this weekend for the Formula E E-Prix, which will be on BBC Two. We'll be having plenty of coverage of that from Morocco and afterwards. So come and see what I've been up to. Definitely not a jolly.
Well, enjoy.
Thanks. See you later. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.